Right, good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the first of two videos today. It is Saturday, the 19th of October. We've got 7 days a week content here on the channel. Busy days here at Vogan Weather HQ, spitting out lots of information with regards to the day-to-day stuff, the medium as well as the long range. So if you're a lover of all things weather, looking at the small picture, but also the big picture as well, then now is the time to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. This is the look at the global picture at the moment, and we've got a relatively active global tropics at the moment. We've got two systems to speak about in the Atlantic. We'll get the details in a second. We've got a couple of features over the Indian Ocean, a couple of invest areas, one over the Arabian Sea, another over the open central Indian Ocean, and then we've got another invest area over the West Pacific as well. Looking specifically at the Atlantic, we've got a tropical storm Nadine moving into Central America, right along the Belize-Mexico border. This is going to be a big rainmaker for the mountainous areas of this region. And also we've got Tropical Storm Oscar as well to speak about. So we've got, despite the fact that the Mann-Julian Oscillation is in a rather inactive phase at the moment here, we've got a lot of upward motion over the West Pacific, extending into parts of the Indian Ocean as well. Hence why we've got a couple of features to speak about in the Indian Ocean. We're going to likely see more systems developing over the West Pacific with this current active MJO, and then you can see all the subsidence over the Atlantic. But small features can still develop even within a large-scale area of subsidence. So far, how is the Atlantic season looking? Well, this is the current tracks of all the systems so far, and we're getting up there now into a more active season. Obviously the month of August kind of day to death. There was a lot of different reasons for that, including the MJO, unusual patterns and circulations, a lot of different aspects that went into such a quiet spell during the month of August. But it feels as if we're kind of starting to pick up in terms of systems and getting through that list reasonably well as well. So you can see here systems developing over the main development region, moving through the Caribbean, some quite active area over particularly the Bay of Campeche and the Eastern Gulf, Western Gulf as well. We've had a few recurves as well to speak about, and we are currently sitting on total depressions 13, total storms 13, 9 hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. We've had 2 Category 5 systems. What's going to be interesting is the system got off to a very active start. Do we see this season going out with a bang as well as going in with a bang? That's going to be the question. And the reasons why I say that is we've got a tremendous amount of warm fuel still within the ocean basin, and with an MJO expected to go back into the Atlantic basin, wouldn't be surprised if we see another 2-3 named systems before all is said and done. We've already got another 2 tropical storms, remember. So technically that number has went from 13 to what? 15? And although Nadine is never going to be a hurricane because it's going to run out of warm water fuel, we are going to keep our eyes on Oscar. This is the current visible satellite imagery here, infrared, sorry, and you can see Nadine moving into the Belize, Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. This is going to be a major rainmaker, by the way, for the mountains of inland areas, so not particularly good news. There's the tropical storm Oscar to the north of Puerto Rico, moving into the eastern portion of the Bahamas, as you can see here. Got some activity over the central and eastern main development region, and then we've got a frontal system across the North Atlantic. We've got the we've got Storm Ashley moving into the UK. Be sure to check out the European Outlook. That's going to be released in the next couple of hours, talking specifically about the European pattern. So it is a double video today because of the active situation that we've got. Always do a tropical outlook on a Saturday, but with Ashley moving ashore during the overnight tonight and then through the course of tomorrow, we have got amber warnings for wind across western areas of the British Isles. So we're going to look at specifically this very significant deepener as it moves towards the UK. So do check out the European Outlook in the video coming up in a couple of hours' time from now. But you can see here that we do have let's look at Nadine first off NHC, see what the latest information is shown here. This is the latest track. No surprise, it's going inland, so there's no real threat in terms of wind really so much from this. Obviously strong winds right along the coastline, but nothing significant to speak about. In terms of the rainfall, that is going to be the biggest threat, and we could see over a foot of rain, possibly even 2 feet of rain in parts of the mountainous areas of central Mexico, extending into the eastern portions of the Yucatan. We could see upwards of a foot of rain as well, but widespread 6 inches is expected across a broad swathe of Central America, as can be seen in this graphic here. Looking at Oscar, we can see what the latest is of NHC for Oscar. So click on this here. Let's see what the track is indicating here of the National Hurricane Center. So it's expected to remain a tropical storm. Notice here that it makes a beeline here for the eastern north coast of Cuba, and then takes an abrupt right-hand turn, and kind of affects the far eastern side of the Bahamas. But this will be a tropical storm. It doesn't look likely to become a hurricane, and it's going to be another kind of wind and rainmaker, so to speak. Nothing major. We have got generally in the range of 4 to 6 inches of rainfall, and in parts of maybe a couple inches across the northern portions of Hispaniola. Far eastern Cuba looks as if it's going to see the biggest rainfall amounts, especially when you've got higher terrain here. You get more enhancement of that orographic lift. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see upwards of 6 inches of rain, for example, falling in the far eastern side of Cuba from Oscar. Looking at the upcoming 7-day period here of NHC, you can see here, so we've got the 2 tropical storms at the moment here. Over the next 7 days, this is how it's looking. So we don't have any other threat seen by the agency at the moment here. We've got Nadine moving in. That's going to dissipate over the next 12 hours or so. And then we've got Oscar kind of roaming around the eastern side of the Bahamas, north side of Puerto Rico, eastern side of Cuba over the next few days here. So this is just going to be a rainmaker. Both of them essentially are just going to be rainmakers. Then we'll look at the models here. This is off the ECMWF. You can see that we've got the Oscar to the north of Puerto Rico here, Hispaniola. We've also got Nadine moving into the Central America region. Got a lot of moisture over this region, if you notice here, associated somewhat with the Central American jar. Then we've got a couple of middle altitude lows to speak about as well. Play through the loop here. Not a whole lot going on within the main development region, if you notice here. And we'll play right the way through till the end. And again, there is no imminent threat. Looks as if Nadine may go across the Central America landmass and then move out into the East Pacific. Could it possibly re-emerge as another tropical system? That is a possibility as we move through the course of this upcoming work week. So it doesn't look as if there's an awful lot going on here. We'll look at the MJO in just a second. We've looked at the IR imagery. There is a lot of shear increasing over the open Atlantic. We've got it through the Gulf of Mexico here, hence why we don't have any kind of northward jog of Nadine moving up towards the Gulf of Mexico. Thankfully, the southern United States is well protected due to these very strong westerly winds here, but we are starting to see an increase in westerly shear here as we progress through the next week or so here. Notice here that we've got quite a strong burst of westerly winds here through the central and eastern portion of the tropical Atlantic. So a fairly hostile environment. Notice here that we do have a little bit of relaxation over the eastern Caribbean, but there's nothing to be concerned about in terms of any kind of spin up. So it looks as if this area is largely the only area that is favourable if there was any system that was defined itself in that area, but that is not likely to be the case over the next week or so here. So obviously we've got a lot of subsidence, we've got a lot of shear to speak about at the moment, but what is the prospects as we move towards the end of October and into the month of November? Now remember, the season doesn't end till the end of November, so we cannot rule out development as we move towards the final month of the of meteorological hurricane season. So if we look at the sea surface temperature anomalies real quick, I want to show you this because this is quite important. Let's look at the Western Atlantic Basin, and this is the sea surface temperature anomalies. And we've got very, very warm waters, but also deep below the surface as well. High levels of ocean heat content is residing across the western open Atlantic, through the Leeward Islands and in through the Caribbean Sea. We've got a lot of very, very warm waters at the moment. The Gulf of Mexico still warmer than average, with the exception of the Bay of Campeche. We've had activity here. We've also had Milton churn up some of these colder waters from deeper below the surface. The waters, coastal waters around Florida and up the east coast, has also cooled quite dramatically in recent times. Some of this cold air coming off the land area has forced some of this upwelling also. But this is a direct response to some activity in the western portion of the Gulf of Mexico, but also the eastern Gulf in particular. That really stands out from the passage of Milton. But this area of water that has been untapped in recent weeks is a concern as we move towards the end of October into the month of November. Because if we look at the Madden-Julian oscillation here real quick, you can see that it is projected to go into the more favourable phases for upward motion once again. So this end game, like I said to you, the season got off to a bang. Could it go out with a bang? That's going to be the question. So if we play off the ECMWF, this is the upward motion over the East Indian Ocean, west portion of the Pacific. We've got sinking over the Atlantic and the Americas here at the moment. So over the next week or so here, it looks as if it's going to remain largely the same. So the greens represent rising, the oranges represent sinking. As we play through this loop, you notice that we start to see an eastward progress of those greens. Then we also start to see the greens moving into the Atlantic, especially into the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. The problem that we have is that untapped source of fuel within the Caribbean. Very warm water at the best of times, but it is record warm at the moment. In combination with this pulse of MJO upward motion, this could suggest that through the first couple of weeks of November, we really need to watch out for this region here for a few developments here. So I'm not necessarily entirely sure whether the United States are under threat during the month of November. Obviously, we've got various other aspects to consider, including the North American pattern, what's going on with the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, etc., etc. But there is an increasing threat, Caribbean, possibly into the Gulf of Mexico, as we move into the early portions of November, given the eastward progress of the MJO. So at the moment, it's unfavourable, but we still have two tropical storms. They will eventually dissipate. But as this pulse moves east, we need to watch out for some development here. We could see another 2 or 3 spin-ups before all is said and done here. And even into the month of December, it's not been unknown for development to take place. Let's have a very quick look and see if I can pull up the right chart here with regards to probability of development. So here we go. With the MJO being in the West Pacific, you would expect to see a greater chance. We've got 40 to 60% chance of development east of both the Philippines and Taiwan over the open portion of the West Pacific. We've not got so much of a threat. This is the period between the 21st and the 28th of October, by the way. But then as we move into the period 28th through the 4th of November, that increased threat remains anywhere to the east of Japan, into the South China Sea, for example, even up into the northern Bay of Bengal. There's a threat for development here between Monday the 28th of October and Monday the 4th of November. But then as we move into the period 4th through the 11th of November, as that MJO moves eastwards, the ECMWF increases the probability quite substantially, Caribbean up into the western side of the open Atlantic basin. So therefore, we need to keep an eye on this here, and then the probability decreases as we move through the month of November. I think the period towards the very end of October and through the first 2 weeks of November I wouldn't be surprised if we see another 2 or 3 developments within the West Atlantic Basin. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward here. Very busy weekend as always. This is the first of 2 videos. European Outlook will be released in a couple of hours' time, so check that out when it is released. And also live stream 4 p.m. tomorrow. I will leave a link in the description below, both today's Tropical Outlook as well as the European Outlook later on. Also, I hope you can join me for that. We're going to be talking about all things global, so stay tuned and be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Much appreciated. Bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.